Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you, and thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you're doing well there. If you guys could subscribe, that'd be great, and I appreciate you stopping by. So, wanted to get to a topic because a couple of things that I was wondering about this week, and a couple of things made me wonder this. One was a segment that was done on the Hoop Collective podcast with Brian Windhorst, Tim Bontemps, Tim McMahon, when they were discussing certain extensions that are eligible to be handed out or haven't been handed out. I think it was initially discussing the Trae Young thing that led into the Tyler Herro stuff. And they were discussing whether or not Tyler Herro, getting his contract extension was likely, what is he going to get, how a lot of teams have to be more careful with these extensions, and especially scoring guards seems to be kind of a market right now. It's going a little bit by the way of, well, I don't want to say the running back. I mean, they're still making ridiculous money. I don't even know if a running back gets $30 million guaranteed in a full deal anymore, except for like Saquon and Derrick Henry. But that's one of those positions, you see an Anthony Simons around the league where like they're getting dealt left and right. Jalen Green could be an example of this, where they're kind of the throw-in for the Kevin Durant deal to make the salaries work. And that, what are teams that have to invest all that into a player like that? Are they just going to simply max guys out left and right? And maybe more of this has to do with just the idea that, we're in this apron era. The Miami Heat just got themselves under the luxury tax. So, very clearly are being conscious about what kind of spending they're going to do in the future. That's why they would make the move of the Haywood Highsmith thing that they did. So they had talked about Tyler Herro. They were comparing it a little bit to Jamal Murray and how Jamal Murray, there's some regret in the Nuggets atmosphere about paying Jamal Murray by some pundits because he hasn't looked as good as he did when, of course, he just, iced the Heat. Every single time. This dude was like he was like every single time in that finals. It was hard enough to stop Nikola Jokic, but every single damn time, those mother bleepers needed a big shot to stop any pulse that the Miami Heat had. There was Jamal Murray just hitting threes up the wazoo. It was diabolical. And what I would say about Jamal Murray, not to compare him to Tyler Herro, because I think in some scoring atmospheres, especially from a regular season standpoint, you could put some comparisons there. But I think that there's a difference in when you win a championship, you're kind of going to be under the assumption, hey, we're going to pay our guys. This was just the case with OKC where they super maxed all their dudes because that's just what they're going to do and they'll figure it out later. Same thing with the Boston Celtics with Jaylen Brown getting the richest contract in the NBA. Is Jaylen Brown the best player in the NBA? But you win the championship, timing is everything with this stuff. Bam, honestly, getting the max that he did off of the Heat's runs, and the Miami Heat just being like, you go ahead with that. We're gonna do that, and we're gonna take care of it. Tyler's gonna be an interesting spot because Tyler is gonna be up for this extension, and there should be one correction because I don't believe that they said this correctly on the podcast. They said that he hasn't been offered. He's not eligible to be offered the extension yet. I don't believe he's eligible until October, when the extension is really going to be available. The question is, are the Miami Heat going to max Tyler Herro and him making $50 million a year of a 3-year, $150 in that range extension that will take place not this year, not the year after, but the year after. That's when it will get going. And they were discussing, would Tyler Herro take an under the max contract? And it's an interesting it's an interesting part of the season because the season wouldn't have really started yet. I think the window is only like 3 weeks. So there's not like, hey, figure this out. Maybe along the season, Tyler's still killing it. He's averaging a career high. He's doing everything. The Heat are riding high, and boom, there's a contract. I think they got to make this decision. I believe the window is like, I think it's like first week of October, and I think it goes to like the last week of October. I believe that's the window to do it, and then they can reopen. If nothing happens, they can re-engage in those talks in the summertime, and then it actually becomes a 4-year extension you start talking about that he's eligible for. So it is interesting. Now, it has been brought out that Tyler Herro, Pat Riley were asked about this at their end of season media sessions. And I really thought that Tyler Herro handled it well, because he was asked, like, is it a big deal to you? And he kind of was like, is it a big deal? Like, is it one of those things that is like going to bother him? And I thought from my standpoint, I was like, he kind of handled that as good as you could handle that. And I kind of like the belief in himself by the end of the answer. And it made you wonder, I was like, all right, how is he going to handle all this? Is this going to be a thing, or are the Miami Heat going to be an okay place with this? And I came away with it being like, I think they're going to be okay. I think that they're going to be okay with this whole scenario and it breaking the way that it is. He said, I think the end of it was like, if we don't get it done, no big deal. We can get it done in the summer, but it'll just be more expensive. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him being believing in his talents. I was like, if anything, that's kind of a badass answer. Then Pat Riley was asked about it, and Pat Riley was like, we're definitely going to talk about it. I've already spoken to him about it. He's cool. But I have wondered, and this was an interesting thing, because Barry Jackson did a report on some of the Heat moves. And this had nothing to do with Tyler, but there was a report that he talked about that the Miami Heat felt like they had a promise broken to them by Jimmy Butler, and especially Jimmy Butler's agent, because they were told by Jimmy Butler's agent, hey, Jimmy's not going to complain about the contract. He's going to show up, he's going to play, he's going to ball. And then that obviously changed. We all know the end of December has been well documented. And so I wondered, and I wonder how much of a thing with this is, let's say we get to October and we're on the doorstep of the season. And Tyler's going to be asked about this at media day, I'm sure, and I'm sure he's going to handle it like a pro, because he's handled more controversial topics than this. Like, hey, you're already making great riches. Will you handle not making the greatest of riches for a few months? Like, I don't think it's going to be one of these things where he's going to put a big standoff on it. I also don't think that we're in this market where he's going to be badgered with it all year, of it being a thing that he thinks about. I think because of the nature of the window, it's like it's there. Once the time passes, I'm sure he's going to be asked by the people there who are boots on the ground. And then once it's not there, it's kind of done with. But you do wonder, and I think people are wondering, is like, hey, what is it going to signal? We've seen, hey, people are monitoring, what are the Heat going to do with Tyler Herro? Hell, there's a lot of people around the league monitoring what the Heat are going to do with Tyler Herro. You've seen, like, Austin Reeves is interested in what Tyler Herro is going to do. And I think Tyler's better than Austin Reeves. Cam Thomas is looking at it. Cam Thomas is kind of in this place right now where he's not getting the money that he thinks he does. And these guys are like, oh, I should be making Tyler Herro money. And Tyler Herro money is going to go even to another level, most likely, because, he makes about 30 this year. But, man, I was looking around some of the guys who make money that are making, like, over $40 million in 2 years, right? And these are some of the contracts. I just want to give people an idea, because I think people are going to be, like, outraged and killing Tyler Herro and all that type of stuff. And just to give you guys an idea of some of the money, like, these are the guys who make about what Tyler Herro makes right now. DeJounte Murray makes about $30 million. Emmanuel Quickley makes $34 million. Julius Randle makes $35 million. Mikal Bridges makes $36 million. These are all these are what they're going to make once their contracts kick in. And so there are people on here like, I'm only going to sign Tyler Herro if it's like right at the rate that it is. And I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know if I'm Tyler Herro if I'm saying that. I'm an all-star credentials that are around the league right now, and that's the kind of money you want me to take. Other guys, you could look at some of these contracts. Lauri Markkanen makes just under $50 million in 2 years. Paul George is going to make 56. I know Paul George is a lot older, so it's a little bit different. OG Anunoby, $45 million. John Morant, $44 million. Franz Wagner, $44.8 million. LaMelo Ball, $43 million. Tyrese Maxey, $43 million. maybe you think Tyler Herro's not as good as any of those guys, but he's not, like, you can't say that he's not in the class of a lot of those guys that I mentioned. Like, outside of Paul George's, like, career credentials and I guess Ja Morant a couple of years ago when he's leading a Grizzlies team, like, all right, but that was a couple of years ago. Like, what are the Grizzlies doing right now? Lauri Markkanen's making $50 a year on a team that's literally trying to lose. De'Aaron Fox is going to make $55 million this year. Yes, he led a team to the playoffs one time, a third seed in the East, in the West that has never been as weak as it was back then. But he's going to be making $55 million a year in 2 years when Tyler Herro's extension would kick in. Desmond Bane, a guy who went for 4 first-round picks this year, $42 million. So is Tyler Herro in that range? Is it the Heat? Are they looking at a 40 to 50 range? Are they looking at a 45? And so this is, I just bring all of this stuff up just because I think you got to put in perspective the types of guys and what kind of money they're making. Tyler's been an all-star. He is your leading scorer. He's your franchise guy. You know, you drafted him. You've kept him out of some big trade talks, right? And it's going to be interesting about how this goes because I do wonder, going back to the Jimmy thing. Okay, you say you're going to go in and everybody's cool right now. Pat Riley says he's cool. But if negotiations don't go great, right? Like, what if it's just iced? We're not having discussions. What if it's, we want you to take 3 years, 120, 40 year? Got to be honest with you. I think that's kind of a decent deal for Tyler Herro based on, again, some of the numbers that I just rolled past you. Understood that you got to be careful with the aprons and who you give the chunkage of your salary. And does a Bam Tyler led team, what does that do? Is there a discussion that you have to pick one of them? You know, which one's harder to replace? And then, you know, do feelings get in the way? Because, look, Tyler Herro has handled a lot of stuff in his career like a champ, you know, whether it be coming off the bench, which, you know, he was always honest that he didn't love coming off the bench, but he did it, and he handled all the questions about it just fine. Trade rumors, he took that stuff all on the chin. Last year, didn't seem bothered by anything, seemed very free. The most at peace I've seen the guy, and he had a tremendous season. Obviously, it ended terrible, but to be fair, it was terrible for everybody. He got in this back and forth with Darius Garland where they're both, you know, finger gunning at each other about how much defense they don't play. And now you have a roster that does have more options on here and is not going to have the lingering Jimmy thing. I think there's also probably a level of, like, they seemed cool. I think Tyler probably thought, like, oh, man, things are going good. And then Jimmy changed too. And the other thing that is interesting with Tyler, and I don't think that he's gotten nearly enough credit about this, but, you know, earlier this summer they were talking about, like, some of the photos out with him and Khalil Ware and giving him the opportunity to play back and forth. Like, he's done a good job with that stuff too, you know, like, and I wonder if he gravitates to that leadership stuff now that Jimmy's gone, maybe even easier than Bam does. Cause Bam's told you, like, hey, it's not the easiest thing for me. I'm not the most vocal dude in the world. Now, Tyler by nature in the front of the media is a pretty soft-spoken dude, but I don't know what he's like with his friends and his teammates. So he could be like a rah-rah guy for all I know. That'll be an interesting thing to follow this year. But if the Heat are in a spot, because I've also seen that this is a roster, like we said, they've drafted a guard. You know, they're watching what Jovic is doing. They are wary of the luxury tax. Now, are they wary of the apron, or are they doing that to prepare to pay for Tyler? Or is this a Norman Powell versus Tyler, we got to pick one to pay type of deal? Like, maybe they feel like if Norman has a good year, can they get Norman at 25 a year instead of paying Tyler 50 a year if he won't take anything less than the max? All going to be fascinating things. All going to be fascinating things to check out and see how that all unfolds. His agent is Jeff Schwartz and Mike Linderman from XL Sports, also Joker's agent. So something to peep While this is all going, if anybody has any grand illusions of like down the road Joker hopping aboard and Tyler being Joker's new Jamal Murray, fresh leg, good knee Jamal Murray. We're just throwing it out there. We're just kicking. Hey, we're just kicking tires. We're just having fun, baby. We're just wondering how this all goes. But to get to my point about Jimmy Butler, I don't see Tyler Herro. And I mean, no one's going to do what Jimmy does, full nuclear. But does he make a stink? I think he handles it all okay. I think that there's not going to be a spot. But will there be some semblance of once you don't get it, is there anything he can do? In the regular season, probably no. Like, I think for the Tyler Herro, if the Heat let it be known that they're not paying him the max, I think it's in the realm of like Tyler's going to have to show himself in the postseason for the Heat to give that kind of belief. I think if the Heat do what they've been doing and they ram their head against the wall again, I think it's probably going to go the same direction in the summertime of they're going to hold strong and then maybe nothing happens and then he goes into a free agency year. And then maybe they're discussing trade stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to come when that window opens up for him to get that extension. And especially if it doesn't go around. Like, look, if the Heat offer him, if I'm crazy and Pat Riley's like, yeah, nah, let's max him out, dude. Then this is all going to be for naught. And he's going to be, I don't know. He'll be making big face hoodie thing, whatever he's making on Instagram. And he'll open up his oodles of hoodie shops all over South Florida because he's going to be here for a very long time. But if it doesn't, if it's not one of these things that is settled with, it'll be interesting to see to see where the ride is. But I don't imagine this ever getting to a point where this season where he's being a sourpuss or a pouty pants and making a stink about it.